Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm an Android developer and a full stack developer, and currently I'm on my YouTube channel. I have a series called Airbnb clone using Ruby on Rails. So yeah, that's it. And in this video, I'll try to explain how Tailwind CSS, which is a popular alternative of CSS, writing CSS from scratch. So how does it work under the hood? Okay, so let's try to understand this. So if you go to Tailwind CSS website, it mentions rapid build modern website without leaving HTML. Great. And it's a utility first CSS framework packed with classes like this. Okay, so what does it mean? So let's go to one of its class, let's say text or maybe font. Let me check font size. So in this, it has mentioned that text SM. Okay, what it means is that it will create these classes on its own. It has created its classes in its, let's say, in its package, and in that, this class basically means this. Okay, so how it will reflect in our code? Basically, you can create a class like this, or you can create something on your own, Rajat, and let me write it as Rajat text. Okay, and what it will mean is that font size will be 1 rem. Okay, so this is a utility based class. Okay, what it means is that we are creating classes based on our utility, and they have very specific purpose. For example, py auto, which means not px auto, it means that padding left and right is automatic, auto, right? So these are called utility based classes. When it mentions on the homepage utility first CSS, these are utility first CSS. Okay, now instead of these, you can create classes like these also, right? For example, this is one previous button class. This is not a utility first class. It's a class with all the properties which might not get used anywhere else. So I hope this explains what utility first class is. Now the advantage of utility first classes is that there is a limit to which how many of these you can create. So you have created text small, that's great, but it also means that you will have to create text extra small, large, XL, double XL, triple XL, 4XL, maybe 5XL or 6XL. You won't go beyond that. So there is a limit. Same goes for PX, margins, and other classes. So in the end, when you have done with adding all these classes, which Tailwind has already done for us, the utility first class has the limit to which how many classes it will have in the end. But in a traditional class format, for example, we have done this actually doesn't have limit, and if your project is really big, you will end up with all the classes like this. And the biggest problem with these type of classes is that you cannot reuse them anywhere else, and these type of classes you can easily reuse. You can reuse these classes also, but it's not that easy. So first one is Tailwind CSS creates classes which are compact, which are limited in number. And if we go about writing traditional CSS, it on a big project, it usually ends up becoming more big than Tailwind CSS. So that's one advantage, size. Okay. Second advantage for our Tailwind CSS is that it's an advantage for me. I'm not sure if it's an advantage for everyone, but the naming of things. So there is a limit to which how much naming I can do. Okay, and in the end, it does get confusing at some point. But in these type of utility first classes, there is no naming convention. You just write what you are doing. Okay, so it becomes really easy to mention things. Okay, so we don't have to invent new names for classes. So that's the second advantage that I get. Third is it will build only the Tailwind CSS will build only those classes which you have used. So this is the main thing, like how our entire project is using Tailwind CSS. What it will do is when you configure Tailwind CSS, you have to create tailwind.config.js. I'm showing this example in my Ruby on Rails project, but this is the exact same thing applies in your React project also. So what it will do is it will go to the Tailwind code, will go to its content, go through all the files. In those files, go through all the classes, and based on all those classes, it will generate all the utility first classes for it. Okay, so when you build a Tailwind CSS class, it usually creates this Tailwind CSS. You see, it builds, it has generated this. So if you are not using all the Tailwind CSS classes, it won't generate all of those classes. So again, it tries to keep your size small as much as possible. And yeah, those are the main advantages and how Tailwind generates its content. It goes through all the, it already has utility based, all the classes defined in its code. It will go to all the content, check all the files, from that it will catch all the classes, from that it will generate all the classes which are required in your project. That's it. That's how it will make it optimized. I have mentioned all the advantages. There are a few disadvantages. If you go to this particular code, now you can see that these are classes which are really long. Okay, and at some point it can get confusing. At the same time, at some point what will happen is that I might have mentioned padding top 8, but it might not be getting used, or it might be getting overridden at some point in this code. So to tackle these problems, there is another thing which you can use, which is Daisy UI. So what it will do is, let me show you one code. Accordion alert card. Let's go to card. Now we can use card prefix, card title, and all those things, and it will generate card for us in our code using Tailwind. So this under the hood uses Tailwind also. So the advantage of this is we have to write really less code. At the same time, the code is much more unified, meaning that much more consistent, meaning that your card will remain same across your website. But the problem with this kind of approach is that if something new comes up, it will be hard to replicate. Like right now we are using Daisy UI, which uses card. Next we can use, let's say, Lotus UI, and it might end up using some other convention for card. So that can be a problem. But overall it's an advantageous thing. It will compress your CSS up to a large extent. For example, let's go to divider. I think that can help a lot. DIVI. Okay, and at the same time I will open Tailwind UI, and in that also I'll open divider. Now let's compare two of these codes. For example, if you have to use this line and show or in between, in HTML you just have to write this if you are using Daisy UI, which in turn uses Tailwind CSS. Okay, and similar thing if you are doing, we have to write this entire code in Tailwind. So that's the advantage of Daisy UI. I have already mentioned the advantages of Tailwind CSS. So yeah, I personally prefer Tailwind CSS because I've gotten used to it. At the same time, I'm using the paid product, which is Tailwind UI, in which they provide me code directly. So that reduces my effort in general. But if you are writing code from scratch, I would suggest you can try out Daisy UI also. That's it, and please consider subscribing these videos. I have been posting videos regularly. Thank you. Bye bye.